The scene opens with Gelder surveying the land around him, preparing to carve out a new beginning. With a wave of his magic, he shatters the obstacles, flattening the terrain into a blank canvas, ready for cultivation. From behind, steward Jod watches and commands everyone to start working. As Gelder tries to leave, Jod stops him, asking him to unleash his magic further into the distance. Sighing with exhaustion, Gelder complies. The scene shifts now. Gelder has teleported back to his home, a sprawling mansion with the classic medieval charm we often dream of. Though weary from the day's labour, Gelder is warmly greeted by his 4 stunning wives, whose harmony is so perfect it could rival any royal court. Settling into the sofa with a cup of tea brewed by Erpa, Gelder begins to recount the events of the day. Then memories from 10 years ago flood back. Back then, Gelder was just an ordinary office worker, slogging through 8 hours a day. We see Jin dragging his tired body home after a draining day at the company. Jin prepares a simple meal like any other day. Sitting at the table, waiting for the food to cook, his eyelids grow heavy with sleep. When he finally opens them, before him lies a plate styled like a dish fit for ancient Western nobility. Peering into the shining metallic plate, Jin sees reflected the face of a 5-year-old child, his new self. Slowly, his eyes lift to the distance, taking in the surroundings. He realizes he is at a noble's banquet, though part of him insists it must be a dream. Just as he tries to shut his eyes and return to reality, a middle-aged man's voice calls him awake. Before he can fully gather himself, a young man bearing a striking resemblance to him steps forward, introducing Gelder to everyone. Gelder maintains his observant stance, quietly accepting that he has been reincarnated into this strange new world. Yet fear does not grip him. Instead, a sense of peace washes over him. He's finally escaped the chains of his past capitalist grind. Sitting beside Egg, Gelder eats while trying to glean information from this older brother figure. Perhaps because Gelder appears just a 5-year-old child, Egg doesn't suspect his brother has transmigrated from another world. He simply smiles and shares that they are attending the wedding of another brother. Egg explains that their father struggled greatly to find a suitable bride for Coette, but at last a perfect match was found. From this, Gelder learns that his family is a noble house. The lavish banquet and exquisite food confirm their wealth and status. Filled with joy, Gelder savours the meal and dreams of a blissful future, but that radiant smile fades with the dawn of the next morning. At breakfast, the familiar dining hall feels changed, more ordinary and worn. The wooden table and chairs are old and tattered now, covered by a plain white cloth. The walls show patches of decay and the paintings are thick with dust. The meal is meagre, just a few dry pieces of bread. Gelder mutters to himself how hard it is to swallow. His eyes turn toward the others at the table, sensing the weight of this stark reality settling in. Gelder's heart raced as he asked about his older brother's whereabouts. Hearing that he had gone fishing and just returned, Gelder hurried outside, following him to seek answers. But, after some time, Gelder's illusion shattered. The noble family they belonged to was real, yes, but painfully poor. What he saw yesterday was just a facade, a family putting on their finest mask for the world. They displayed only their most beautiful side to greet guests at his brother's wedding. As Gelder looked around his home, he noticed the servants removing the fabrics that had hidden their poverty. Slowly, the truth peeled away. Their noble status was a brittle shell over a fragile reality. Gelder followed quietly towards the fountain, his mind swirling with questions. Counting the children in his family, including himself, there were 3. But wasn't there supposed to be more rights and privileges? Suddenly, a parade of Gelder's older brothers appeared. After some quick calculations, he realized with a sinking heart he was the 8th son of this noble family. It took a moment for Gelder to steady his breath. With the tidbits he gathered, he mapped out their family's place in the kingdom and the holdings around them. The truth was stark. He lived in a sprawling household of nearly 800 people, and as the 8th son, his future was uncertain, shadowed by so many ahead of him. Suddenly, distant voices echoed a farewell from his 3 elder brothers to their mother. They were preparing to leave, likely to wander far and long before returning. Gelder's heart pounded as he rushed over, eager to understand their fate. He learned that the 3 had relinquished their inheritance rights, choosing instead to seek livelihoods beyond the family's doors. In a noble but impoverished lineage like theirs, the right to inherit belonged to the eldest brother, with the second in line as the reserve Eric. Eric gently ruffled Gelder's hair, warning him that drifting aimlessly now would only bring hardship in the future. After a bittersweet goodbye, the brothers embarked on their quest for new paths. Gelder returned to the family's study, hungry for knowledge, scouring countless books for clues to a better life. But hours passed without any treasure, only growing disappointment. Just as he prepared to descend the stairs, Gelder accidentally dropped a crystal orb beside a note. Recognizing the orb as a magical artifact, his skepticism sparked magic. That was just a myth, right? But the note spoke of the arcane arts, revealing that only 1 in 1,000 could become a mage. Gelder doubted he would possess such power, yet he refused to surrender hope. When the orb suddenly glowed, his shock was palpable. This signal did not go unnoticed. A striking long-haired young man in a nearby forest sensed it too, his curiosity piqued. Determined, Gelder upended the study searching for spellbooks, but his efforts were in vain. Even his father couldn't decipher the cryptic texts. Crestfallen Gelder retreated into the woods to gather firewood, but his spirit remained unbroken. Inspired by tales from past lives, Gelder sketched a magic circle and grasped a branch like a broken wand, chanting an incantation. Nothing happened, just a foolish boy playing at sorcery. Suddenly, the mysterious long-haired man appeared behind him, startling Gelder into alertness. The stranger introduced himself as a mage and offered calm reassurance. Then a stone cracked on the cliff above, tumbling down onto a wild boar below, enraging the beast. The boar charged at them. Gelder froze, terror gripping him, but the mage stopped him and guided his hand to channel magic against the beast. The spell knocked the boar down, but it quickly recovered, fury burning in its eyes as it charged again. Fear flooded Gelder anew. This time the mage stood firm, raising his hand to unleash a powerful wind spell that hurled the boar far away, crushing trees in its wake. Gazing at this display of raw power, Gelder was awestruck. The mage smiled kindly and revealed he was a former member of the Magic Council of the Border Kingdom, known as AFZ the Two-Eyed One. Their eyes locked, and Gelder heard a promise he would become a greater mage than AFZ himself. The scene shifted to the next morning, where Gelder sat at the breakfast table with his family staring at a pale, weak-looking cup of tea. Innocently, he wondered if this was yesterday's brew. The family's reaction was cold, insisting it was fresh. Inside, Gelder sighed. What truly set things apart was the tea his new master had served him in the forest behind the castle. Back at the family estate, after witnessing AFZ's dazzling magical display and the enchanted pouch he carried, Gelder still couldn't shake his amazement. Sitting down for tea, AFZ offered to teach him magic. Though Gelder worried about money, AFZ explained he sought no payment, only a disciple worthy of inheriting his knowledge. Sensing the opportunity, Gelder shed his doubts and called AFZ master, vowing to devote himself fully to the magical tutelage. The two sat face to face sipping tea as AFZ urged him to keep their secret safe. If the family learned of Gelder's magic, it could threaten the fragile balance of inheritance. Gelder, knowing he was just the 8th son, never imagined he'd be heir to anything. AFZ smiled knowingly. Gelder didn't yet grasp the true worth of a mage, a power that could elevate him beyond any successor's claim. Snapping back to reality, Gelder caught sight of his eldest brother sitting sternly beside him. He remembered AFZ's warning, revealing magic now could ignite a dangerous power struggle, risking the safety of a boy like him. So, Gelder resolved to keep his secret. Curious, yet honest about his lack of funds, Jin reveals he seeks no riches, only a disciple to pass on his arcane knowledge. Sensing the heart of the matter, Gelder's hesitation melts away. With a swift, respectful call of Master AZ, he vows to do whatever it takes to earn this magical inheritance. Once again, the two sit face to face over tea. AZ entrusts Gelder with a secret, urging him to keep it hidden. When the boy's brow furrows in confusion, AZ explains that if word of Jin's magic leaks out, it could shake the very foundations of their family's heirloom rights. Gelder, grounded in reality, dismisses any chance this legacy will fall to him. After all, he's the 8th son of the Azet family. AZ smiles knowingly, pointing out Gelder's blind spot. He doesn't yet grasp the true worth of a mage, a truth that alone could crown Gelder the rightful heir. Snapped back to the present, Gelder locks eyes with his stern eldest brother seated nearby. Remembering his master's warning that exposure could ignite a dangerous power struggle, especially for a child like him, Gelder seals the secret deep within his heart. After breakfast, Gelder slips out under the pretense of foraging, heading straight to meet Az. This marks the dawn of his magical education. Standing beside a gentle river, Az begins the quest to awaken Jin's true power. Seeing Gelder's lingering doubts, Az patiently unravels the mystery behind sinking one's strength with their mana flow. Az's words light a fire in Gelder's eyes. He wonders aloud if this training could amplify the mana within him to unprecedented heights. Az's nod is all the confirmation he needs. Grasping Gelder's hand, Az guides him to sense the currents of mana, swirling inside a moment charged with silent awe. With eyes closed, Gelder feels the pulse of mana, like a warm breeze embracing them both. Success blooms in his heart as he finally perceives the ethereal energy. Az's joy is palpable, revealing a stunning truth. The mana limit born with Gelder surpasses even his own, a limit yet untouched by Az himself. This revelation shakes the foundation of what they believed possible. The innate mana Gelder carries is not just vast, it's a beacon of potential waiting to ignite. In this quiet riverside moment, a new chapter begins, whispering promises of power and destiny intertwined. Meanwhile, in the Gelder family study, Gellen's father was deep inside, joined by the eldest brother, who seemed to seek him out urgently. Their eyes shifted toward the magic orb, now altered, curiosity piqued. The father recalled the chaotic scene Gellen had caused in the study just yesterday, and the words about magic use Gellen had mentioned. A chuckle escaped the father's lips as understanding dawned. The eldest brother laughed along. Naturally, they thought Gellen was somewhere crying because he had no mana. No one expected that the child they dismissed was not only able to wield mana, but was already performing simple magic. Just then, Afs returned carrying a basket filled with freshly gathered food. He praised Gellen, who modestly credited his teacher's guidance. Seeing Afs with the basket sparked curiosity in the Gelder family. Afs smiled and said, "This is Gellen's excuse to leave the house." He mentioned heading beyond the mountain to look for food. That very evening, the basket of food Gellen brought home caught the family's attention. Yet, they still didn't suspect Gellen's newfound magic ability. Only the eldest harboured some doubt. Meanwhile, Afs held Gellen aloft, soaring through the sky, teaching him to combine wind magic with mana sensing. Efzed encouraged Gellen to blend these two skills to hunt winged creatures. After some explanation, Gellen tested the mana flow, again sensing the world around him. Suddenly, he detected a bird soaring in the distance, locking onto it with newfound precision. Gellen summoned wind magic, hurling shards of stone like arrows straight at the bird. The strike was true. The bird was immobilized. Afterward, they shared the spoils of the hunt, cooking the bird simply over fire with wasabi, transforming it into a delicacy. Afs, intrigued by the unusual ingredient, mimicked Gellen by dousing his meat heavily with wasabi before biting. Gellen watched in mild horror who eats that much wasabi. Without flinching, Avs remained unfazed, chatting easily about why Gellen must avoid venturing too deep into the forest. There are many dangerous monsters there, he warned, but also rare herbs. Many go seeking them and never return. Gellen then shared tales of his recent days, slowly weaving a connection between his struggles and the wild world outside. In this moment, the bond between teacher and student deepened, one forged not just by magic but by shared dreams and the silent promise that together they would conquer the unknown. As the sun dipped low, their journey was just beginning, a storm cloaked in calm, ready to shake the very foundations of their world. If you've ever felt powerless like Gellen, remember sometimes the smallest spark can ignite the fiercest flame. It seemed that Gelder sensed his eldest brother was watching him closely, suspecting something. One glance was enough to guess that the eldest brother suspected Gelder might be wielding magic, fearing he would lose his spot as heir. But Gin, of course, had no desire for that position. He suggested that Gelder should become an adventurer instead. While Jin was still dreaming of a future, roaming freely unaware, his face had turned pale and dark energy seeped from his hand. He was clearly enduring immense discomfort, but only muttered, "Give me a little more time." That evening at dinner, Gelder openly declared his future plan to become an adventurer and leave at age 12 to study at the Adventurers Academy. Excited for the future, his smile faded abruptly upon hearing that his family couldn't afford his tuition there. The next morning, Gelder was introduced to the vast world ahead, starting with their place in it, then the distant land Gelder aspired to reach. Realizing the journey was long, Jin decided Gelder should first master flying magic. With that, Alts embraced Gelder and gave him a soaring experience. Jin was lifted straight into the sky at an incredible speed, a thrilling rush for Gelder. In moments, they soared mid-air, and Gelder glimpsed the immense world, seeing it as the future waiting for him. Perhaps sensing his limited time, there was a bittersweet weight in the air. The very next day, while Gelder practiced flying magic, Alts announced tomorrow would be their final lesson. Hearing this, Gelder's focus shattered, and he tumbled onto the green grass below. His eyes grew lost and sorrowful as he looked at Alts, confessing his weakness and desire to learn more. But Alts's gaze hardened with solemn resolve, locking eyes with Gelder and saying, "You will do it even without me." This felt like a farewell from mentor to student. That night, Jin's spirit sank deeply from this parting. Half asleep at dinner, a conversation from his father jolted Jin awake. His father spoke of death spirits appearing near the castle forest. Beings once human, but now cold to the touch with pale skin. Initially, retaining human reason, they soon turn into savage undead attacking the living. The description mirrored Owl's condition. After the meal, Jin immediately sought his mentor in the dark, eerie forest. A small figure struggled to increase his flying speed deeper into the woods. After a tense moment, Gelder found his revered master. Gelder rushed over, pulling Alts back to the castle, fearing the danger of encountering death spirits. Alts gently released his student's hand and shared a heartfelt confession. Of course, Gelder already suspected what was coming, but he refused to believe his master was a death spirit. Alts admitted the truth: he had become one. Afraid Gelder would run away at first sight, he lied initially. Owls recounted his past, how he entered the deep forest with an army to find herbs to save his lord's son, battling over 20,000 monsters. But drained of mana and dying with regret, he transformed himself into a death spirit, hoping to find a disciple to pass on his knowledge over 30 years. A death spirit can only find peace when their wish is fulfilled. Now, having found a fitting disciple in Gelder, Alts wished for Gelder to purify him himself. Hearing this, Gelder shook his head, unwilling to kill his master with his own hands. But Owls refused to become a mindless, murderous undead. This was his final plea to Gelder to purify him personally. After inner struggle, and despite the pain purification caused Owls, and many moments Gelder wanted to quit, he finally overcame the barrier. Bowing his head in gratitude, Gelder cherished the short 2-week journey that taught him so much. Alts's satisfied smile was his farewell gift. As Gelder completed the purification, Alts faded away into endless darkness and emptiness. Gelder understood his master had transcended. The 5-year-old boy could only cry out loud, mourning the loss of his revered and beloved mentor. Time passed 7 years, and Gelder turned 12, ready to embark on his adventurer journey. His goal, the Adventurer Academy Alts had mentioned years ago. At the academy, senior students trained as the new semester began for newcomers. In Gelder's class, kids stood to introduce themselves. First was Louise, a blue-haired noble's daughter and martial artist. As Gelder reflected on his 7 years of training but lacking social skills, a red-haired girl named Inna stood to introduce herself. She was also a martial artist gifted in spear techniques, earning a scholarship. Deep in thought, Gelder was called upon by the teacher to introduce himself. Surprised, he stood and spoke quickly about himself, but unlike others, his words fell flat, met only with silence, a silence that spared him attention. The teacher then handed out team registration forms, encouraging future adventurers to find suitable teammates to train with next month. Morning passed and lunchtime arrived. Gelder sat alone in the quietest corner, clutching his steak plate, his face shadowed by sadness. Inside, he wrestled with feelings of isolation and his lack of social skills, doubting if anyone wanted to talk to him. He pondered ways to reach out, but was unaware that Louise and Inna were watching him approaching his side. Along with them came Ewan, a top 3 knight and skilled swordsman from a noble family. The 3 quietly discussed Gelder, aware that he was accepted for his rare magical talent, a precious gift among thousands. All 3 recognized that Gelder's acceptance was not luck, but a testament to his extraordinary potential, setting the stage for bonds and challenges yet to come. The magic teachers all agreed there was nothing left to teach him. Gelder was a prodigy, a sorcerer whose talent shone brighter than any star. The trio believed Jin kept silent, not out of rudeness, but because he was silently weighing if these people deserved to be his comrades. Owen, catching the drift, pulled out an application form with Jin's name, and Ina, Liss's, attached, the ultimate goal being to recruit Jelen. Yuin, brimming with confidence, declared himself a top-tier swordsman, alongside the best in spear and martial arts. There was no reason Gelder wouldn't join their team. Coincidentally, the Axe trio shared the same target, and vowed not to let Yuin's group snatch Jin away. As their laughter echoed, Galen noticed the moment. He was about to stand and break the mood with words, hoping to connect with everyone, but the joyful atmosphere held him back. This scene caught Galen's eyes. The crowd was immersed in happiness. If Jin spoke now, it might shatter this fragile harmony. Later in their afternoon class, Ji's teacher mentioned that some families couldn't afford tuition, so they ventured out hunting, turning their catches into money for daily life. Hearing this, Gelder realized it wasn't just about him. The teacher went on suggesting they could form teams to boost efficiency. Watching the eager faces finding suitable partners, Gelder felt a pang of emptiness. Meanwhile, Yuin's group observed quietly. Ina proposed approaching Galen to invite him, but Yuin saw this as a test from Gelder to the whole class, who truly deserved to be his comrades. Yuin believed Galen sought no burdensome attachments. Only strength mattered. If a team brought too many Jin, would surely refuse. If Gelder overheard this, his anger would surely flare. Suddenly, a hunting party returned and headed back to the trading spot. The Axe trio shared Yuin's thoughts. They needed to prove their worth through their spoils. They had gathered a good haul and awaited Galen's return to witness the outcome. As Ina Louise and Yuin praised each other, Jin walked back, bypassing them, heading straight to the trading table. Seeing Jin return empty-handed confused the trio, but when a flood of monster corpses spilled from Galen's magic pouch, every face in the hall dropped jaws to the floor. In just a blink, the pile of defeated beasts towered high. If it were them, they wouldn't have hunted nearly that much. Realizing their place, the Axe trio quietly left. They approached the three friends, as Yuin reminded Galen, who now held a colossal bag of money, about celebrating with a feast. But Galen froze. Everyone else had left long ago. That evening, Ina Louie and Yuin sat together sharing their stories. Their fates intertwined, born with outstanding talent, yet as fourth-born heirs, they lost their rights to inherit their domains. Suddenly, the trio strides past others, heading straight to the trading table. Seeing Jin return empty-handed, confusion flickers in their eyes, until a cascade of monster corpses bursts from Gelder's magic pouch. The grand hall gasps in stunned silence. Such a haul would be a dream for any hunter. Witnessing this, the axe-wielding trio wisely retreats, acknowledging the unspoken truth of Gelder's strength. Approaching the three companions, Yuin offers a reminder, as Gelder clutches a hefty bag of gold ready to treat everyone to a feast, only to freeze, realizing the crowd has long since vanished. That evening, Ina Louis and Yuin gather, sharing their mirrored fates. Each born with exceptional talent, yet shackled by their status as the fourth child stripped of their claim to the family's domain. Forced to leave, they seek paths worthy of their true selves. Even Louis feels the cold distance of her brothers, while her eldest secretly trains in the shadows. Ina's fierce cry pierces the night, an echo of defiance against their cruel destiny that sends a shiver through Yuin. United by hardship, the trio resolves to hunt more monsters, proving themselves worthy allies of Gelder's burgeoning journey. The next morning, they delve deeper into the forest's heart. Ina cautions them of lurking dangers, but Yuin's determined voice cuts through, ready to face whatever shadows await, driven by hope and the burning desire to carve their own fate. It's all right. As soon as the reminder faded, Ina sensed the monsters closing in. The trio of adventurers found themselves surrounded by a pack of wolves, numbers overwhelming, and among them a colossal beast. Though these three were the top of their class, they were still mere leaders in a vast world of danger. Against such overwhelming odds, survival felt impossible. In moments, the wolf pack had them cornered, and when Yuin was clawed and wounded on the brink of being torn apart, salvation arrived in the form of Galen. Detecting their plight from afar with his magical senses, he soared swiftly to their rescue. With earth magic, Galen conjured a protective barrier encircling the three as jagged stones shattered the wolf pack to dust. Back at the dormitory, each of them apologized to Jin for their reckless gamble. They confessed their desire to prove themselves worthy to join Galen's team, yet also recognized the vast gulf between them and him. Feeling the weight of their shortcomings, they voiced thoughts of giving up and seeking other paths. Jin's surprise was palpable, but before he could respond, their teacher burst in with joyous news Their class had been selected to attend the Black Order's grand event. Excitement rippled through the room. This was the chance to change their fates. Most students buzzed with anticipation, except for the trio known as the Axe Squad. They knew the truth. The Black Order wanted to meet only Galen, their classmate, not the entire group. Ina, however, held on to hope, believing they could still seize an opportunity. The scene shifted as Galen prepared himself, stepping into the Black Order's banquet. The Count appeared youthful, far from the image of a stern elder. As he chatted amiably with guests, his gaze locked on the arriving students, specifically Galen. Ina noticed the Count's attention, but was brushed aside as the Axe Squad mocked the situation. The Count approached Galen with a smile, praising his social grace, before requesting a private conversation. Jin eagerly agreed and requested the company of Ina, Louis, and Ewan, introducing them as his comrades. The trio exchanged bewildered glances, but followed him into the Count's private chamber. Inside, another figure awaited a middle-aged man known as the Count's trusted mage, and Galen's master's master. Galen respectfully addressed him as Grandmaster. This mage Banter was an expert in detection magic, and had sensed Galen's master Afs had perished in Galen's domain, as well as Galen's transformation into a revenant. Galen listened intently as Banter pieced together Galen's journey and asked about Afs's final feelings. Learning that Galen had purified Afs's soul brought Banter joy and gratitude for giving Afsi a peaceful farewell. After this solemn exchange, the group of four left the Count's office, the atmosphere lighter. The trio admitted they initially intended only to use Jin for their own gain and had abandoned the dream of joining Galen's team. Galen only smiled, confessing he felt the same. He simply wanted companions to stave off the boredom of solitude. This honesty sparked laughter among them, and Galen expressed a genuine wish to become their teammate. Behind them, the Count and Banter returned, the Count revealing that Galen had retrieved Afs's magical satchel filled with priceless items. After tallying their worth, the Count announced Galen's reward, a staggering 1,000 gold coins. The group gasped in astonishment, and Galen inherited Afs's mansion, a vast new chapter opening before him. The next day, Galen and Banter boarded an airship bound for the capital to attend Galen's brother's wedding. Ina, still uncertain, questioned whether they truly belonged on this journey. Louis showed no such doubt, busy trying on wedding attire. Meanwhile, Ewan clung nervously to a nearby pillar, terrified of falling. Banter reassured Ewan that the airship was safe and steady, easing his fears enough to let go. But the threat of disaster lingered. What if the ship were attacked or damaged? Suddenly black clouds swirled around them, and a skeletal dragon appeared, casting a shadow of dread over all aboard. Panic erupted as passengers sought the captain, desperate for solutions. A representative stood firm, assuring everyone of safety thanks to the presence of the all-powerful mage Banter. Yet Banter confessed his own limitation. His magic did not extend to holy spells, so he could not vanquish the skeletal dragon. The crew's faces fell in despair, but Banter confidently introduced Galen. Though Galen himself felt no confidence, doubting his ability to defeat this beast, Banter believed in him. If Galen lacked this power, he was unworthy of Afs's tutelage. The group gathered at the airship's hatch as Banter instructed Galen carefully. Banter promised to safeguard the ship, telling Galen to focus solely on the battle and seize the perfect moment to unleash his holy magic. As the hatch opened, Galen launched himself forward, flying straight toward the skeletal dragon's gaping maw. Greeted by a barrage of attacks, Galen conjured protective spells and dodged fiercely. Behind him, the ship was shielded by a magical barrier, easing his worries. Gathering his resolve, Galen soared closer, channeling the holy magic that could turn the tide. Panic swept through all aboard when they learned their ship was targeted by a bone dragon. Eyes turned anxiously to the captain, desperate for a solution. At that moment, the spaceship's representative stepped forward, reassuring everyone that the presence of the mighty mage would keep them safe. But sadly, Banter confessed that his own powers didn't include holy magic, meaning he couldn't defeat the bone dragon. Seeing the crew's worried faces, Banter confidently introduced Galen. Hearing this, Galen's confidence faltered. He doubted he could overcome such a foe. Yet, Banter believed in him, saying if Galen lacked this ability, he wouldn't be worthy of being Afs's disciple. The whole group gathered at the ship's hatch before departure. Banter warned Galen to be cautious and promised to ensure the ship's safety. Galen needed only to focus on the battle, choosing the perfect moment to unleash his holy magic. The hatch opened, Gellin activated his flight magic, and soared straight toward the bone dragon's gaping maw. Greeted by a barrage of attacks from the bone dragon, Gellin raised his magical shield to protect himself, dodging desperately. Behind the ship, a magical barrier held firm, allowing Gellin some peace of mind. Regaining his spirit, Gellin charged ahead toward the bone dragon. Focusing deeply, Gellin summoned every ounce of strength to cast his holy magic. After a tense moment, he released a radiant blast directly at the bone dragon. The creature writhed in agony, yet it fiercely counterattacked, unable to break through Gellin's defenses. Inside the ship's hull, Gellin's teammates rejoiced at the monster's defeat. Meanwhile, Banter instructed them to collect the dragon's bones and magical core. As Gellin stared blankly at the fallen beast, it took him a moment to remember the magic pouch at his waist. With danger behind them, the entire crew erupted in joyous celebration. Banter was unexpectedly reunited with an old comrade, now a renowned merchant in the capital. He praised Gellin, and warned that shopping in the capital might prove challenging. The party stretched from dusk till dawn, with most collapsing by sunrise. As the ship docked in the capital, Gellin was welcomed by royal knights aboard a luxurious carriage. Shopping in the capital might not be as easy as it seems. The celebration stretched from the fading hues of sunset the night before, all the way to dawn's first light. By sunrise, most were drained, collapsed in exhaustion. As the sun peaked over the horizon, Gellin's ship finally docked at the capital. He was greeted by royal knights riding in a luxurious carriage. It was clear they had heard the news Gellin had vanquished the death dragon. Now he was invited to the royal palace to meet the king and claim his well-deserved reward. Gellin's first encounter with such grandeur left him awestruck, but soon he mounted the carriage alongside the merchant to head towards the palace. The palace was nothing short of magnificent. No sooner had Gellin set foot inside than he noticed noble lords, casting curious glances his way. Particularly Gelder's attention was drawn to the white-haired king seated at the throne. The moment the merchant saw the king, he dropped to his knees in reverence, and Gellin followed suit. The king regarded Gellin deeply before praising him and presenting a fitting reward. Gellin was bestowed the title of Baron, along with the Dragonslayer's insignia. From now on, he could branch off from his original family line to establish a new legacy. Accepting this honour, Gellin pledged his loyalty to the nation. Meanwhile, news of this reached Aegis. Gellin's older brother was shocked by his younger sibling's rise. Back in the capital, discussions began between Gellin's side and the royal court over the Death Dragon's materials. The court was split into two factions, one pushing to buy the dragon at a steep price of 170,000 gold coins, the other offering only 130,000. The fierce debate left Gellin speechless until the Pope stepped in, brokering a fair deal at 150,000 gold coins that balanced both sides. The merchant accompanying Gellin voiced his thoughts on the three factions within the court. Those favouring a high price tried to lure Gellin, while the low bidders sought to protect the kingdom's interests. Even the Pope played this delicate game, each with their own agenda. In essence, all aimed to bring Gellin under their control. The negotiations dragged on until twilight. As Gellin and the merchant stepped out of the palace, they encountered a young man casually practicing spear techniques until guards came and whisked him away. Only then did they leave for the evening. The next day, Gellin's group appeared at Eric's wedding. Approaching, they saw the tired faces of three individuals who revealed that their family's wedding gifts had yet to arrive. This was the Gelding family's burden. Their eldest brother refused to send any presents and forced them to manage alone. Inna and Louis also spoke of this slight. They saw it as a direct insult to Lord Blackcorder, since the Gelding family governed Gellin's side while the bride's family was led by Viscount Monza. Such behaviour brought shame to the Baron. It was like refusing to lend money. Despite this, the wedding proceeded smoothly, with lavish gifts from the Gelding side taken from their recent rewards. As dusk's golden light settled, the wedding drew to a close. At this moment, the merchant approached Gellin and handed him a jar of rice, the very thing Gellin had long awaited. He had dreamed of using this humble gift to fulfill a promise, a symbol of hope and sustenance amid the grandeur and turmoil. This simple jar carried the weight of dreams and the quiet strength that would propel Gellin forward on his extraordinary journey. This special rice is fermented to recreate a dish from Gellin's past life. the group led each other into the kitchen, working together from kneading the dough to pressing it down to extract the fermenting liquid. Normally, this process takes an entire year, but thanks to magic, Gellin managed to obtain the perfect ingredients. Gellin also wondered how fermentation could produce both beneficial and harmful bacteria to humans, and finally found the answer from his past life. The next day, Gellin took it upon himself to cook this soup. When it was served, everyone was captivated by its flavour. Even Gellin couldn't help but whisper the word satisfying. Meanwhile, at the Pope's office, his granddaughter entered dressed as a nun. It seemed she inherited traits from her grandfather. The Pope announced he had found a suitable fiancé for her, and that fiancé was none other than our protagonist Gelda. The scene opens just after the baptism ceremony, early in the morning at the church where the Pope lives. Gelda was honoured to be personally invited by the Pope to attend this sacred ritual. Entering the reception room, Gelda expressed deep gratitude to the Pope for the invitation, fully aware of the ceremony's sanctity. Gelda reciprocated with a small gift of grapes. As they chatted happily, Alette arrived with tea. Both parties politely introduced themselves. Gelda was momentarily stunned by Elite's breathtaking beauty, which delighted the Pope. Upon learning Elite could wield advanced holy healing magic at such a young age, Gelda's astonishment grew. Coupled with her stunning looks, Gelda guessed she must have many admirers. The Pope agreed and expressed his wish for Alette to live happily, by her own choice without pressure to become a pope like him. Hearing this, Gelda joked that he might need to prepare himself to win Elite's heart. Unbeknownst to him, the Pope took this joke very seriously. Gelda, oblivious, laughed foolishly. But when the Pope fell silent, fixing him with a stern gaze, Gelda's laughter faded. And so the engagement between these two 12-year-olds was set when they turned 15. Alette will officially become Gelda's wife. Gelda never expected that a simple work trip would lead to a future wife. Returning home dazed, he found the Pope and his steward laughing heartily. The Pope seemed to regret tricking Gelda so harshly, using the baptism invitation as a pretense to arrange the engagement. The steward anxiously asked how they would explain this to Count Blackcorder. The Pope confidently replied that the king's approval made the engagement unchallengeable. Even a count must obey royal commands. At Gelda's mansion, everyone rejoiced over the engagement, except Gelda, who was confused. Coming from Earth, Gelda believed marriage needed heart-to-heart connection and mutual understanding, something he thought was essential before marriage. But hearing his elder brother say he hadn't even met his own wife before marriage, Gelda realised how different this world's values were. Still, this wasn't the time to dwell on it. Gelda disguised himself as a clown, aiming to explore the town and shop without drawing attention from the servants. Yet every story has two sides. While none of the servants recognised him, he became the centre of disdainful stares from passers-by. Gelda was at a loss, but Ewan advised him to keep calm, as this disguise would at least prevent servants from bothering him. However, just as Gelda stepped out of the shop, he spotted the spear-wielding youth from yesterday, also one of his servants. Gelda tried to hide, but the spear-wielder quickly rushed over and recognised him instantly. His sharp teeth were a dead giveaway. The man's shout alerted the crowd, and they frenziedly charged towards Gelda. The spear-wielder attempted to stop them, but Gelda was quicker, using teleportation magic to whisk Ewan back to the mansion. Sitting down to remove his makeup, Gelda sighed deeply. He was clearly exhausted. Seeing this, his brother suggested hiring new servants to keep troublesome people at bay, an idea Gelda readily accepted. He chose Ewan for the task and left him behind with a bewildered expression as he walked away. It took a moment for Ewan to realise his new role and the excitement it brought. Meanwhile, Gelda appeared at the Pope's mansion window, possibly from worry. Lying still, Gelda prayed not to be discovered. Suddenly, a voice called his name from behind. It was Elite. Quickly, Gelda grabbed her hand and they escaped to the rooftop, ensuring the Pope wouldn't spot them. Feeling safe, Gelda turned to explain he wanted to talk. To ease the awkwardness, Gelda presented a cake he had bought earlier that day, but when he saw it was broken, he shyly hid it and moved on to the real topic. The sunset painted a breathtaking scene as they sat atop the mansion, gazing out at the ocean. Gelda asked Elite how she felt about their marriage. To his relief, she wasn't opposed, and even thought it was a good thing. All his worries melted away. Returning home, in high spirits, Ewan boasted about his new status to Inna and Lewis. Seeing their envious faces, Ewan was even more pleased and offered to speak warmly about them to Gelda if they wished to become his servants like him. The thrill of this offer was the highest joy for Ewan, who wanted them as his juniors. Sneaking her up to the rooftop, making sure the Pope didn't spot Gellin, he turned back to explain to Elise that he wanted to talk, hoping to ease the awkwardness of their meeting. Gellin pulled out the cake he bought earlier that afternoon for her, but seeing it had crumbled, he shyly hid it and dove straight into the heart of the matter. The sunset painted a breathtaking backdrop as they sat atop the mansion gazing out over the sea. Gellin asked Elise how she felt about their marriage. Learning that Elise didn't resent him and saw their union as a good thing melted all Gellin's worries away. He returned home in high spirits. Meanwhile, in Gellin's mansion, Ewan proudly flaunted his new status to Aina and Lewis. Seeing their envious faces only fueled his arrogance. He even offered to sing their praises to Gellin if they wished to become his servants, his way of showing he wanted them as his juniors. The thrill of dominance was undeniable. Ewan craved having Ina and Lewis under his wing. Hearing this, Lewis pulled Ina aside to strategize. After some talk, Lewis decided she didn't want to be Ewan's junior. Instead, she and Ina would become Gellin's concubines. That way, they could openly keep Ewan in check. The thought excited Louis immensely. Just then, Gellin returned to the mansion. Lewis put her plan into motion, trying to seduce her beloved husband. Only the 12-year-old girl appeared wearing a tight dress and high heels, performing a dance she thought sultry. Louis saw herself as a temptress, but in Gellin's eyes she was a slippery eel flailing in the mud, a foolish child waving her arms wildly. Gellin ignored the spectacle and followed his sister-in-law's call to dinner, leaving the performance behind. Gelda, unfazed by this spectacle, heeded his sister-in-law's call and moved into the dining room to join dinner, leaving the young fool to continue his enchanting dance alone. Late into the night, in her bedroom, Inna caught sight of Louis cutting up the new dress she had bought. Curious, she asked why. Louis excitedly revealed he was gearing up for round 2 of his seduction plan. Hearing this, Inna felt a twinge of helplessness. But Louis, brimming with ambition, chimed in, becoming Gelda's mistress could be great. It would allow her to chase her dream of opening her own martial arts dojo and gain her family's acceptance. Inspired, Inna regained her resolve, silently vowing to push forward. Yet when Louise handed Inna a barely there outfit, 8 parts revealing 2 parts covering, she couldn't help but feel a bit unsettled. The noisy commotion from the 2 upstairs drifted down into Gelda's ears. Meanwhile, outside, he was accepting a dinner invitation from Elise handed over by the butler, a gracious offer for the evening. The scene shifted to Elise's mansion, where the 2 sat down to savour a feast worthy of kings. Yet despite the lavish spread before them, the mood was heavy, almost suffocating. From the first bite to the last, their conversation barely stretched beyond the names of dishes and polite compliments. When Gelda made to leave, the butler gently reminded him to present a return gift, a sign of civility. Gelda agreed, seeing the wisdom in the gesture. But little did he expect the gift to be an engagement ring from the jewellery store. After careful consideration, he chose a simple band adorned with a magical stone, though pricey Gelda willingly spent it to express his sincerity toward Elise. On the carriage ride back to Elise's mansion, she broke the silence by asking about the ring. Knowing it was magical, she wondered if it would somehow benefit Gelda in the future. Yet Gelda confessed he had no idea about its magical properties. He bought it simply because it suited Elise perfectly, an honesty that stirred something new in her, something she had never felt before. Gelda even cast a spell on the stone, conjuring a galaxy of twinkling stars, a scene breathtakingly romantic. Though modest in power, this magical gesture ranked top tier in the art of wooing, leaving Elise visibly delighted. Back at the cathedral after dinner, the Pope quizzed the butler about his impression of Gelda. The old servant was hesitant, saying it was too soon to judge. Gelda carried an aura unlike any other. While others treated Elise as noble highborn, Gelda saw her as an ordinary girl, treating her with sincere kindness. This difference warranted careful observation. The scene opened with a trio, Owen, Inna, and Louis, enjoying an afternoon meal as they plotted their strategy to seduce their beloved husband. Hearing this, Inna perked up excited, yet reminded herself there was no need to rush. Their summer vacation was just beginning. The quiet determination in their eyes spoke volumes. Love was a battlefield, and each had their own way to claim victory. But beyond the schemes and laughter, a deeper yearning simmered, a hope that one day their desires would be fulfilled and their hearts truly seen. So, as they savoured their meal and whispered plans, the mansion hummed with unspoken dreams and unbreakable bonds. In this dance of love and power, who would lead and who would follow? Only time and courage would tell. Their time at Yuan Academy was far from over. Hearing this, Yuan nodded in agreement. After all, Gellin still had Elite by his side. Just mentioning Elite's name, she suddenly opened the door and stepped in, startling everyone. But Elite simply smiled warmly and greeted them, learning that Gellin was not present. She then revealed her purpose to gather information about who Gellin really was, based on the thoughts of Yuan Inner and Louis. Meanwhile, Gellin faced a daunting challenge from the king, who decided to send him to slay another dragon. Though Gellin hesitated, he had no choice now that he was a noble bound by duty. The group began discussing their strategy. The goal was to defeat this dragon, to claim the territory it occupied. Securing this land would solve the capital's food shortage. Gellin still worried, how could just 2 mages possibly defeat such a beast? The king reassured them that reinforcements had arrived. At that moment, a large, muscular man burst in radiating excitement. Banter immediately recognized him. The two exchanged cheerful greetings. Next to Gellin stood Amsotrong, the brawny mage, who greeted everyone warmly and praised Gellin's achievements. Afterward, the trio bowed respectfully to the king and accepted the mission to eliminate the dragon. If not for Banter's confirmation that Amsotrong was a true mage, Gellin might have mistaken him for a warrior given his colossal physique. They quickly set out toward the plains where the dragon held court to plan their attack. At Gellin's estate, his older brother Jin and the Yuan group received the news and discussed it. They believed the king's intent in sending nobles to slay the dragon was to legally claim the land. Deploying troops was necessary to prevent rival nations from seizing this valuable resource. Sending the king's soldiers was also a cost-saving measure. Suddenly, a raucous sound outside interrupted them. Leading the noise was a spear-wielding warrior and a squad of soldiers. Jin called them in, eager to join the battlefield and help eliminate the monster. Yuan explained Gellin was absent and that she represented him in giving orders. She hesitated, doubting her leadership abilities, but Exik, Inner, and Liss assured her they would support her. After a day spent organizing their forces, they mounted horses and rode toward the battlefield. Yuan understood that every soldier was hungry to prove themselves and climb the ranks, just like she once was. At the camp, the 3 of them were startled by Elite's arrival. She said all healing mages had been summoned to prepare for the upcoming battle and sought news of Gellin. Learning. He was on the front lines. Elite felt a pang of disappointment and turned away, unable to meet him. Meanwhile, Gellin and his comrades stood before the dragon's lair. Even a slight tremor from the beast heightened Gellin's alertness. As the cave cracked open, they steeled themselves for battle. Suddenly, a colossal dragon emerged. Jin was terrified, but Amsotrong immediately cast a battle magic, enveloping his muscular frame in heavy armor. He transformed into a mage knight and charged at the dragon, grappling fiercely. Banter noted Amsotrong's magic was even sturdier than typical protective spells. Pushing himself to the limit, Amsotrong subdued the dragon, just as Gin gathered his magic outside. A powerful spell formed at the dragon's core and exploded decisively, ending the fight. Back at camp, Yuan reunited with Elite, and the 4 shared a joyful meal prepared by Jin. During their conversation, a knight approached with news Jin's group had conquered the ancient dragon. Elite's happiness was boundless. Returning to Gellin's side, the trio inspected the dragon's remains. Amsotrong warned that true danger was only beginning. Gellin looked puzzled, until Banter reminded them of the sacrifice their master had made. With the dragon gone, the surrounding monsters lost their threat and now attacked fiercely. The trio at the camp readied themselves for battle. Indeed, wounded soldiers streamed in over the next days. Nuns tirelessly used holy magic to heal, draining their mana reserves. Only the saintess retained healing power, though even her magic had limits. By evening, her energy was nearly spent. Just as Elite's mana depleted, the ring Gellin had given her supplied the magic to continue healing. Elite worried deeply for Gellin's safety on the front lines. Soldiers' encouragement helped her regain composure and fulfill her duty. Healing the wounded stretched into the early morning hours. The saintess, exhausted but joyful, persisted in her mission. Suddenly, a soldier raced in with triumphant news. The frontline army had returned victorious and overwhelmingly strong. Joy and relief swept through the rear camp. Elite, bursting with emotion, dashed forward to find Jelen. Seeing him unharmed at her back, she breathed a sigh of relief and fainted. When Elite awoke, it was late afternoon. She lay on lush green grass beside Jin in a peaceful scene. Gin praised Elite's heroic efforts at the front, admiring her nobility and happiness that they had fought side by side till the end. As Gellin rose to fetch food for her, Elite held his hand. She confided she understood Jin didn't want to be the people's hero by choice, but felt forced into that role. At that moment, Amso Trong hurried over to check on Elite, and Gellin learned that Elite was Amso Trong's magical granddaughter, a bond like master and pupil. The scene shifted. Now, everyone was moving belongings from Gellin's estate to a house in the capital. Ewan curiously opened a painting showing Gellin's impressive trophies, 2 dragon-slaying medals. Meanwhile, Inna and Lewis discussed their plans to become concubines. Note: no original subtitle provided for this number, so no rewrite. Note: no original subtitle provided for this number, so no rewrite. Note: no original subtitle provided for this number, so no rewrite. Note: no original subtitle provided for this number, so no rewrite. Note: no original subtitle provided for this number, so no rewrite. Just as tension rose, Ellis appeared, casting a shadow of unease over the two. But when she declared she wouldn't interfere with their status as Gelder's concubines, joy blossomed instead. Perhaps their long-held wish was finally coming true. Not long after the wedding of Gelder's other elder brother Lin was celebrated. Yet behind these noble ceremonies lay a deeper game. The aristocratic families sought closer ties to Gelder by approaching his brothers. Lin reminded everyone about Gelder's upcoming Grand Martial Arts tournament featuring swordsmanship, spear-fighting, archery, and martial combat. He urged Gellin to enter the sword division. Gellin replied that, while he could amplify his abilities using magic, sadly, the tournament forbade any use of sorcery. This rule left him frustrated and troubled. If only there was a category for kitchen knives, he joked he'd surely claim the championship. The next day, Ewan, Inna, and Louis maintained their physical training routine. The two women seemed relieved to empower themselves with magic, while after a long run, fatigue weighed heavily on them. Ewan grew frustrated seeing the others enhance themselves magically, while he relied solely on his natural strength. But Ewan was born without mana. Magic wasn't his ally, so all he could do was grit his teeth and persevere. Along their path, they encountered Gellin flying overhead, seemingly heading toward the Pope's mansion to discuss urgent matters. Once training ended, the group, Inna, Louis, Owen, and Banter, relaxed on a sofa savouring food. Banter brought up their participation in the martial arts tournament. Shock rippled through them. They wanted to refuse. But upon learning it involved Gellin's honour, Inna and Louis rose with resolve to train without magical aid. Even Ewan was scolded by Banter if he didn't push himself. Now he'd be cast out of the team within years. Ewan believed Gellin wouldn't abandon him, but Banter insisted the only rule was not to become a burden. His words weren't cruelty, but a call to humility. The scene shifted to Jin's group enjoying a meal. The simple combination of rice and seaweed pleased their palates. Their chatter soon turned to whether Gellin would join the tournament. Excited, Gellin confirmed his participation, determined not to shame their team. Jin mentioned Ellis would join their team, and the group welcomed the addition of a healer. Elite lamented there was no event suited for him in the tournament. Hearing this, Ewan's eyes sparkled with a renewed determination. Having accepted to join, and to save face, Gellin mentioned Elise would be joining their party. Everyone eagerly agreed. Having an extra healer was a blessing. Elise lamented that no discipline suited her for the martial arts tournament. Ewan's determination deepened at this, while Gellin noted the defending champion from last season wouldn't participate, easing one challenge among hundreds. Still, it was just one less hurdle on an endless path. Confident, Ewan vowed to win for their team. After dinner, he dragged everyone out for grueling physical training, running pull-ups and swordsmanship. Unsurprisingly, Gellin was a rookie struggling to keep pace. Clumsy with a sword and outmatched in stamina, Gellin lagged behind. Yet Ina, Louis, and Ewan persevered with Ewan, pushing himself so hard his palms bled. After exhausting days, Ewan collapsed on his bed, his mood souring since hearing the last season's champion was returning. According to the Emperor too, days left before the tournament. The tension was thick and Gellin felt the pressure mounting. They asked after Yuin, but he couldn't summon confidence, lacking any magical talent. This helplessness ignited Louis's fury, causing him to storm off, leaving Yuin alone with heavy thoughts staring at the forming calluses on his hands. The next morning, Yuin sought out Gellin. He wanted to know if Gellin would abandon him should he fail at the tournament. But seeing Gellin asleep from exhaustion, even muttering Elite's name in his sleep, Yuin's resolve faltered. Hearing that even someone like Elite trained tirelessly to avoid holding others back, Yuin's perspective shifted. Looking Gellin directly in the eyes, Yuin declared with newfound confidence that he would bring victory to Gellin. Later, he approached Ina and Louis, humbly apologizing for his earlier arrogance. The three resumed their relentless training for the upcoming tournament. Finally, the day of the martial arts tournament arrived. Ina, Louis, and Yuin warmed up, hearts pounding. Only Gellin appeared sullen, resigned to certain defeat in his first match. As the starting bell rang, the first battle was Gellin's. The crowd's cheers thundered for the Dragon Slayer Gelder. Yet the louder the roar, the more Gelder's gaze darkened upon seeing his opponent was last season's champion Ren. As expected, Gelder fell to Ren's first strike, retreating to the observation area faster than anyone anticipated. Next came Ina, Louis, and Yuin's matches. They swiftly defeated their opponents, advancing to the semi-finals. Ina faced a spear-wielding fanatic and lost, crushing her chance at the finals. Yuin, however, fought with all his might and triumphed, securing his place in the finals. His opponent, last season's champion Genro. Before the final battle, their meeting only intensified the pressure weighing on Yuin. Back in the resting room, tension gripped Yuin's heart. Ina and Louis approached, suggesting he check the lunchbox Jin had prepared. Opening it, Yuin found a heartfelt message from Jin cheering him on. The tight knot of anxiety unraveled inside him. Taking a quick bite, Yuin seemed to make a silent vow. The day's battles unfolded, the winner clear to all, but after everyone sought a suitable master. Most notably, Louis found his mentor in Amsu, the muscular mage Jin had encountered earlier. The scene shifted to Gellin's homeland, where his older brother and father worked their lands, preparing for the new season of cultivation. Just then, the steward approached, with tax reports, casting wary glances at Gellin's brother. The elder dismissed suspicion, trusting fully. At that moment, Gellin's mother arrived, announcing a guest from afar, bearing a letter about Gelder. Hearing the name Gelder stirred unease. Ignoring the letter, the brother left it to his wife, who opened it with shock. Jin had sacrificed himself exploring an ancient ruin. The scene returned to Gelder's estate after 3 years of training. He now looked mature at age 15. He and his team had become true adventurers. While Jin still screamed for freedom, the adventurer Banta arrived, presenting them with a new mission to explore a recently discovered ancient ruin. Their journey would be guided by a veteran adventurer. However, the king wished to avoid sacrifices from Gellin's team, so Banta himself would lead. The ruin had appeared following their defeat of the ancient dragon. Several seasoned teams had ventured in, but none returned. Everyone wondered why even the strongest adventurers vanished. Only one answer: the monsters inside were dragons. Entrusting the mission to Gellin's team made sense. Gellin was confident, but Yuin feared a real dragon would spell their doom. Banta reassured them, noting their team was called the Five Dragons. Using magic, he sensed the surroundings were safe. There was no need to worry. Louis kept watch at the gate and the group proceeded inside. Beyond the gate, aside from a magic formation in the center, nothing seemed amiss. They entered the formation. But moments later, Banta sensed something wrong and shouted a warning. It was already too late. One by one, the adventurers vanished into thin air. The last to disappear was Elite. When Elite opened her eyes, she found herself in a different place. From afar, she saw the others safe, which eased her worries. She then approached Banta, studying their surroundings and the inscriptions on the stone wall. They discovered it was a reversal magic formation, transporting intruders from the top floor down to the deepest level. Escape meant climbing back up. Louis suggested Gelder use teleportation magic, but Jin said it was impossible without knowing their exact location. Their only choice was to climb upward through the floors to escape. Without hesitation, Jin's team headed upward. On the first floor, they faced a vast golem arena swarming with innumerable golems. Jin prepared to use magic to clear them, but Ina Louise and Ewan stepped forward to lead the charge, saving magic energy for the dragons they might encounter. The three dispatched many golems with Banter and Gelder's support, while Elite stayed behind to heal any injuries. It took time and considerable effort to clear the golems in the arena. Outside, 5 days passed, and everyone presumed Jin's team had perished. Only Elite's grandfather remained calm, trusting in their survival. But the other nobles disagreed. Some opposing factions to the Pope immediately sent letters to Gellen's territory, urging him to seize power. Their ambitions stirred, exploiting the uncertainty surrounding Jin's fate as the tides of power shifted silently beneath the surface. The young Baron Jin pledged loyalty to the Lord, an alliance forged to seize control and climb even higher within the ruins. Meanwhile, the Gellen group fought fiercely against the relentless golems, taking turns to battle wave after wave of monsters. But after conquering so many flaws, their strength was nearly spent. Sitting apart, Gelder and Elite rested, trying to recover their magic power. Gelder looked at Elite with worry, urging her to conserve her energy. Elite was deeply moved by his concern. She was about to remind Jin to do the same, when she noticed he had leaned against her shoulder, fallen asleep. So the team pressed on through the next floors, each member drained to the last drop. If they faced a boss now, they surely wouldn't have the strength for a final fight. Then entering the next floor, they were thrilled to realize it was the last. Freedom was almost within reach. But fate had other plans. Awaiting them was a dragon golem. Before they could regroup, the dragon golem launched a vicious attack. Banter moved swiftly, raising a magical shield to block the blow. It seemed the end was near when a swarm of golems suddenly emerged behind them, cutting off their escape route. Now, Jin's group had no choice but to fight with everything they had, risking it all for a chance to survive and escape the ruins. Seeing the dragon golem's relentless assault, Gelder rushed to aid Banter in holding the magical shield. Knowing defense alone wouldn't last, the two decided to pour every ounce of remaining magic into a counterattack. Banter emptied his magic reserves, channeling it into Jin, who gathered it all into one final desperate strike. But Gin had underestimated the dragon golem. It effortlessly returned a surge of magic, far stronger than his attack, pushing him back. Despair washed over Jin. All he wanted now was to apologize for failing to protect everyone. Just then, Gellin, unable to hold on any longer, faltered. Elite swiftly moved behind her, using her supreme magic to transfer her energy to Jin, the transfer sealed with a kiss. Elite collapsed into Gellin's arms. The power boost amplified Jin's attack immensely, and in a flash the dragon golem was utterly defeated. Behind them, the other golems ceased their assault. The scene shifted. Everyone had reached the chamber holding the final treasure. Nearby, Jin and Elite lay on beds, recovering their exhausted energies. Louis grumbled about Ina's intentional kiss on Jin, but was quickly summoned by Ewan to the library. Louis reluctantly followed inside. Gellin and Elite, now revived, entered after him and witnessed a treasure trove of ancient magical knowledge, books and artifacts crafted by legendary mages of old, brimming with untold power. The group was stunned, joy flooding their hearts. This was the reward reserved for those who conquered the ruins. The scene changed again as Gelder led the adventurers. Led by Gellin, the adventurer team received an audience at the royal palace to be rewarded. Each member was granted 2 million gold coins, a sum so immense it left everyone speechless. It was a fortune that might last their descendants for generations. Naturally, the royal treasury would distribute the gold over 10 years. Back at their mansion, Amso appeared tinged with regret over Gellin's desire to leave the city. He also promised to investigate the source of rumours claiming Gellin had abandoned his comrades, a revelation that shocked many upon Gellin's return. Even Gellin Lin was learning of these rumours for the first time, yet something told him the truth would soon come to light. Nobody cared as the crowd began buzzing about the enormous bounty they'd just received. After some debate, they all agreed to hand it over to Gelder, their manager. Hearing this, Gelder felt a bit overwhelmed. 10 million gold coins split among 5 people was no small fortune, and he wasn't sure how he'd even spend it. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Jack Sayre's crew, the ruthless head of the shady media conglomerate, spread rumours about Jilin's death. They gathered, secretly but oddly. Gelder's survival didn't seem to bother Jack too much. In fact, it was part of a larger plan Jack had brewing, one he intended to exploit for his own dark agenda. Back with Gellin and his team as they leisurely enjoyed breakfast, a pink-haired girl was watching them from outside the window. Gellin sensed someone there, but when he looked, no one was in sight. Soon after, Gellin brought up the idea of finding someone within the capital's mansion before he left. The group agreed they needed to find a person strong, intelligent, capable, and loyal enough to shoulder the responsibility. The name that immediately came to my mind was Jick. So without delay, they invited Roddick to the mansion and laid out their request. Roddick was overjoyed and accepted on the spot. The pink-haired girl continued to shadow the group, who soon noticed her presence. First, they made sure Gelder was safe, then rushed to the window to check, but she had already slipped away. Gelder told his team they had some tasks to complete before leaving the capital. Gellin and his comrades headed straight to the Research Institute, now built in an ancient architectural style. There, Gellin met the professor who had purchased the magic array at the ruins. Upon seeing Gelder, the professor smiled warmly and greeted him. Gellin explained his wish to use the technology from the ruins. They had studied a tool that could harness magical energy to create objects imagined by the user. Truly, if such a device fell into the wrong hands, it could unleash chaos of unimaginable scale. Despite the device still being in the experimental stage, Gelder's request was readily approved. Without hesitation, Gellin focused his imagination and produced an unexpected object, the underwear of Elite. Everyone stared, labeling him a pervert. Embarrassed, Gellin quickly explained before refocusing to create what he truly intended. 3 female teammates instinctively covered themselves, but this time, Gelder successfully manifested the desired item. The group left, pushing a cart covered with cloth. As they stepped out of the Research Institute, they immediately teleported away. The pink-haired girl witnessed everything clearly. Only after Gelder was gone did she approach the spot, inhaling the scent left behind. Her thoughts darkened, suspecting Gelder of some secretive scheme. Back at Gelder's mansion, the scene shifted to a celebration. He was hosting a feast to thank those he owed. Even Amsoren, who never expected such a gesture, grew fonder of Gellin. Just then, Gellin entered carrying a massive plate of tuna. Noticing everyone's curious gazes, Gellin proudly presented a special dipping sauce for the 3-year-age raw tuna. The guests eagerly began to savour the unique culinary delight, adding warmth and camaraderie to the gathering. The first bites of the tuna had everyone praising its exquisite flavour, unable to hold back their admiration. After investigating Jacka, the younger brother of Commissioner Jack reported that the culprit spreading rumours about Gellin's death was none other than himself. Gellin believed he wasn't messing with Jacka, so why would he want to harm him? Jacka revealed he was Jacka's son, whom Jacka refused to acknowledge. Gellin understood Jacka's cunning nature. He only wanted to use Gellin as a stepping stone to reach his brother's commissioner position. Jack Roddick also said he had offered Jacka a hefty bribe for spreading false rumours about Gellin's death. So, Gellin decided to counter with a rumour that Jacka was heavily involved in Jin's death. Since it was just hearsay, no one could investigate further, but it was enough to silence Jacka temporarily, especially with the royal family watching. At that moment, a pink-haired girl appeared by the window, eyeing the delicious spread, especially the fragrant tuna. Unable to resist, she burst through the door. Ewan tried to stop her, but was swiftly taken down by her one move. As she advanced toward Gellin, he grew a bit afraid, though his real concern was the tuna plate beside him. Seeing her approach, Gellin was puzzled. Her father Edgar stepped in to explain, introducing her as Juma. The intention seemed similar to the Pope's hoping to bind the two as a couple. But Juma appeared interested only in the food, briefly commenting before sealing the deal. Gellin then left with Inal. Banta approached and explained it was the hero syndrome, born with immense magic and strength, but demanding vast amounts of food for energy. Edgar wasted no time, getting straight to the point. He wanted his daughter to act as Gellin's bodyguard, even suggesting marriage. Gellin, still reeling, hadn't quite processed it yet. After a moment, Gelder announced he would leave the capital to become a normal adventurer. Hearing this, Edgar looked puzzled and glanced toward Count Blackorder. He learned Gellin was going on a monster hunt, not just a routine hunt, and entrusted Gellin with a task. The story paused here and shifted back to Gellin's family. Gellin's wife read a letter announcing Gellin's death. CT was informed he would inherit Gellin's estate and position. Overjoyed, CT's happiness was cut short by his wife's sharp scream. Outside the window, Gellin's fully armed team appeared, fixing their gaze on them. Galen's group entered and discussed with CT the Black Order Count's campaign to find the sacred elixir. Though the mission was over, many soldiers sent years ago had become corpses, or even undead. Their goal was a grand purification to help the dead find peace. CT was displeased, demanding payment for any relics found. Banter shared the same sentiment, asking Galen what price he would offer. Galen said 30 PH, but CT raised it to 50 PH. Behind Galen, Ewan had grown irritated with CT's rude attitude. Furious, he spoke out, and Louis echoed the sentiment, directly striking at CT's pride, reminding him Galen's rank surpassed his. CT could only grumble that Galen's servants lacked discipline. Galen reluctantly stepped in to mediate, but secretly judged his brother as increasingly unbearable with time. That evening, CT held a meeting to answer townsfolk questions. When asked if Galen would help cleanse their family's lost souls and retrieve relics, CT showed his usual displeasure. Meanwhile, Galen's second older brother warmly welcomed their group at his home, a stark contrast to CT's coldness. Galen promised his sister-in-law he would recover their grandfather's relics, bringing her joy. The next day, Galen's team ventured deep into the mysterious forest to purify the lost souls. Upon finding the right spot, they formed a circle, shouting insults to provoke the souls, drawing them in. Though the souls had lost reason, the harsh words enraged them, causing them to charge. Jin and Elite combined their powers, creating a vast purification barrier that cleansed any soul crossing its boundary, leaving only their armor behind. After the battle, Inal and Luis gathered the leftover armor, puzzled by why nothing else remained. Suddenly, a sharp sound of wind sliced through the air as a flying lizard-turned-spirit attacked. Damar stepped forward to fight, wielding twin spears and cutting clean through the creature's neck, purifying its body with sacred magic. Then came waves of monstrous souls relentlessly charging, but the group purified them all with ease. Afterward, they scanned for any missed souls and found Elite's grandfather's spirit still conscious. Galen and Elite approached. The soul smiled contentedly, assured that his granddaughter lived happily, then relinquished his sword. Elite quickly performed the purification ritual. With the mission complete, Galen's team collected the soldiers' relics to return to the local villagers. As they prepared for burial, Coot appeared, demanding the relics be handed over to the blacksmith to replenish iron supplies. An elder argued that their loved ones' bodies were gone, so the armor should remain for burial. When CT refused, Gauda stepped forward, exchanging a massive metal block to settle the dispute. Coot left annoyed. Gauda planned to gather the armor later. Then, Galen's group proceeded to Count Black Order's mansion to report mission completion. Galen said he was free to leave and live as a wandering adventurer, but the Count wanted him to stay and govern his homeland. As Gauda was about to refuse, he stepped forward, wielding a massive chunk of metal to exchange disdainful words before departing. His intention was to leave this place, planning to collect the armor later. Subsequently, Galen and his group made their way to the estate of Count Black Order to report the completion of their mission. Afterward, Galen expressed his desire to freely leave this place and become an independent adventurer, but the Count insisted he remain in his homeland, holding authority over it. Seeing Gauda's refusal, the giant remarked that Gin's homeland wasn't so bad, it was quite comfortable. With that, the group returned to finish the task of returning the belongings of over 2,000 fallen soldiers to their families. At the same time, they encountered the butler of the Gauda family, who graciously invited them to participate in the funeral of Elite to preside over the ceremony. The local priestess had organized an evening event to honor the deceased with areas for dining and private memorials. Vic Cott's absence irked the old butler, but his wife and children attended, expressing gratitude, as she brought her 2 children to commemorate those lost in battle. Gauda also met them and shared joyous conversations, especially with his 2 grandchildren, who admired Jin for his glorious achievements. The group, including Inna and Louis, joined in this cheerful atmosphere, reenacting the battle between Gauda and the fallen Long as the night grew late. Gauda also met with them, their conversation warm and lively, especially his 2 grandchildren, who gazed at Jin with awe over her glorious feats. Meanwhile, the Inna Louis troop joined this joyous atmosphere by reenacting the epic battle between Gauda and Old Long. As night deepened, the ceremony drew to a close, and everyone returned home. Gauda and his comrades bid farewell, but then Gauda met privately with the steward, who implored him to become the lord of this land. Hearing this, Gauda quickly urged him not to speak of such matters in front of his father and CT. Yet the steward expressed that both he and the people yearned for Gelder to take lordship here, lest Krot's rule bring ruin sooner or later. Knowing Gin's love for freedom and adventure, he proposed Roddick as the land's manager, promising to support him fully. Even the royal court wished for Gin to govern this land. Upon hearing this, Jin was puzzled. Banter appeared just in time to explain the situation more clearly and repeated the steward's words. Later, Gin and Banter retreated to a secluded spot for a private talk. Banter revealed that the king had expanded the kingdom's lands aggressively, yet managing them was a nightmare because the lords had lived like commoners for years. Therefore, Gelder was the perfect candidate to become the lord here. But this plan was layered with complexity. If the king pushed Krot out to install Gelder, many other lords would fear the same fate. So the king needed Krot and Gin's father to leave the region directly to fix CT's mistakes. He would use the pretext that Jin purified the land of the death spirit, earning the people's support to place Gin in power. But this purification also made CT nervous, likely to plot Gelder's assassination, turning CT into the villain. Jin understood why Banter hadn't touched a drop of alcohol these days. He had to stay sharp, watching for threats against Gin. Jin only wondered how deep this plan truly ran. Yet he knew it had been in motion for a long time. This seat, this burden was his destiny. He must revive this land. The next day, while making candy and chatting, Gelder's comrades had no objections to him becoming lord, but Jin's mind was tangled in worry. They plotted to kill Gelin, making Kot a criminal. Gelin understood why Border Janta had refrained from drinking for days. It was to remain alert, watching for those who intended to harm him. Gelin could only ponder the depth of this plan, but he realized this scheme had been in motion for a long time. Gelin had to accept his role. He bore the responsibility of reviving this land. The next day, while they made candy, they discussed Gelin's inevitable rise to lordship of this territory. His comrades had no objections, but Gelin was troubled by the matter until his eldest sister-in-law arrived with her 2 children to visit, allowing him a brief respite from his worries. Meanwhile, the village elder remained hidden, observing Gelin's sister-in-law closely. That evening, while Gelin and his family were enjoying dinner, loud noises from outside caught their attention. Gelin took his younger brother outside to investigate, discovering the local villagers expressing their support for him to become the lord of this land. Upon hearing this, Gelin's brother warned that if Kot heard them, they would be in grave danger. However, the villagers, undeterred, replied that they had risked their lives to secure a brighter future for their descendants. Thus, they would still choose Gelin to be their lord. At this moment, Gelin felt lost, admitting he still had no plan. As tensions rose and the villagers began to bicker, Gelder stepped in to advise them to return home and provide an answer as soon as possible. Banter noticed in the distance the village elder hiding. Caught in the storm of their resolve, Gelin was lost. He had no plan, no path. As voices rose in heated debate, Gelder stepped in, urging calm and asking for a swift answer. Banter, watching from afar, noticed the village elder hiding silently, observing. He quickly trailed and confronted him. Banter saw through the elder's scheme a desire to back Gelder to incite the villagers into a fatal advance. If Gelder became lord, surely the elder would be treated well. If not, no harm done. The elder feigned ignorance, leaving only a cryptic warning, "Beware Gelder's eldest sister-in-law." Across the way, Tie's fury boiled over upon learning the villagers chose Gelin as their lord. He vowed this would never stand. Meanwhile, Gelder and his group gathered to discuss the lordship. Gelin felt the weight of it all, a nagging thought: if he became lord, what fate awaited CT? Banter's gaze pierced Gelin's soul as he declared, "CT will seek your destruction." Gelin's heart twisted in turmoil. He would never let that happen. At dawn, Gelin ventured to CT's mansion, seeking parley to prevent bloodshed. Seated face to face in tense silence, CT's anger simmered, yet he masked it with cold composure as he heard Gelin's plea. Hesitant, Gelin proposed a deal to claim the untamed lands nearby, while CT remained lord here, passing the mantle to Gelder upon retirement. But CT's patience snapped. He slammed his tea aside and rejected the offer outright, accusing Gelin of sinister intent. As Gelin tried to explain, CT cast him out without mercy. Wandering away, Gelin unexpectedly met his sister-in-law, and they shared their fears in quiet understanding. Gelin confessed his helplessness, only wishing to avoid needless deaths. His sister-in-law, unbothered by politics, only sought to protect her children. Building trust with Galen was her shield for them all. Returning home, Galen rallied his comrades while baking a simple act grounding him. "I will become lord of this land," he declared, "but I need your help." Ellet smiled, ever loyal, easing Galen's worries. In the days ahead, Galen's team traded goods from the capital, at fair prices winning the villagers' hearts. Then they targeted CT's closest allies, offering irresistible terms, pushing them away to isolate CT. CT, enraged by this betrayal, spiraled into madness. Yet Galen extended a path of mercy first, securing a modest home for CT's wife and child, then finding a church where CT could repent, hidden from the king, thanks to Roddick's aid. With all his allies fled, CT's fury grew wild, and he vowed to hunt down and kill Gelder. Suddenly, Jacka's lackey appeared, mocking CT for bringing only a blade against Galen. The fool's plan was knife, but then he presented CT with a dragon flute, a cursed artifact capable of summoning dragons to slay Galen. CT's eyes gleamed madly, clutching it like a treasured relic. The next morning, Galen's squad entered the enchanted forest fully armed to face CT. Banter's magic sensed only CT approaching alone. Worries about reinforcements lingered, but none came. CT revealed his trump card, the dragon flute, and Galen stepped forward alone, feigning ignorance while probing CT's intentions. CT scoffed, summoning Galen's hidden comrades from the shadows. With cruel mockery, CT spat venom. "No matter how heroic Gelder was Dragon Slayer, lord of this land today, I'll end Jilin." Confidently, he brandished the dragon flute, a weapon both feared and revered. The villagers gasped. This flute could call forth dragons to destroy enemies. Aina puzzled. "We defeated dragons already. Why fear this?" But none expected it could summon an entire horde, overwhelming even elite armies. This power explained CT's arrogance and the villagers' dread. Behind Galen, his allies condemned CT's madness, using the flute would doom his family and followers alike. CT laughed maniacally, indifferent to loss. To him, betrayal meant death. His hateful eyes gleamed with twisted joy, believing that killing Galen would crown him lord and fuel his ambition for an even mightier domain. Galen's fury burned. How could CT abandon wife and child for hollow glory? As Gelder prepared to unleash magic, CT threatened to blow the flute, halting him cold. Behind, Galen Banter waited for the moment CT faltered, then struck fiercely at the flute to shatter its evil song. But the flute's power blocked the strike. CT remained unscathed, smiling with wicked pride. He raised the flute and blew fiercely, aiming to wipe out Galen's forces. Gelder rushed to intervene, but Juma held him back, sensing the flute's dark curse. Elite stepped forward, revealing the truth. This was no ordinary dragon flute, but a cursed whistle that summons death. Spirits, soul reapers, who consume the user's humanity. Bound forever to those spirits, CT was but a pawn in Jacka's cruel game. Seeing CT transformed into a vessel of darkness and charging at them, Galen froze, stunned. But Elite moved swiftly, invoking holy magic to block the deadly assault, standing as a beacon of light against the encroaching shadow. In this clash between light and darkness, between ambition and sacrifice, the story pulses with the raw energy of souls tested by fate. If you've ever felt powerless, like Galen, take a breath and ask yourself, what would you risk to protect those you love? At this pivotal moment, she revealed her resolve to purify the soul child herself, yet Elite's strength alone was a fragile flame against such darkness. Just as Elite reached his limit, Gelder summoned his spirit, returning to reality with renewed clarity. Perhaps his thoughts had finally settled. Then Galen stepped forward toward Elite with a quiet but firm proposal, to unleash a wide area purification spell, like the one they used together to cleanse the wraiths in the haunted forest. Hesitant at first, Gin's resolve ignited when she met Gelder's determined gaze. Pouring every ounce of strength into their combined magic, they struck, and finally the wraith was defeated. The creature's body was hurled far away, dissolving into a spectral wisp that fled into the distance. Elsewhere, Jaxer and his sycophants revelled, believing their conquest of Gelder's territory was all but sealed. They mocked Kot as a fool, just a tool to be exploited for their gain. Jack's true plan was clear. Once he had his first victim, CT would be the next to fall. Amid their cruel laughter, the spectral wisp of CT suddenly burst through a window, charging fiercely at Jack in a frenzied attack. The next day, Jack's mansion was surrounded by the military launching an investigation. Preliminary findings revealed that Jack and all guests from the party were slain by CT's vengeful spirit. Outside the palace, Gellin, Banter, and Ams gathered to discuss these tragic events. They also pondered the fate of CT's wife. Rumours whispered that Jin's death was orchestrated by Kot implicating CT's family as accomplices. This suspicion led to their ostracization, a painful isolation they could hardly escape. Jin knew they needed a safe place to settle. Banter sensed a profound change in Jin. Though he denied it, the difference was unmistakable. He reminded Gauda that, as a noble, accepting the dark undercurrents and political scheming of their world was inevitable, even if it clashed with his nature. That evening, despite the cheerful atmosphere at dinner, Gauda's mood grew heavy. Seeking solace, he found Elite and confessed his unease, asking if she noticed Gin's transformation. Elite confirmed it, admitting her own frustration at times. Gauda realized he hadn't yet adapted to this harsh new reality. Determined, he resolved to become a righteous noble. Elite watched as Gellin slowly reclaimed the confident presence she once had. The next day, at the palace, Gellin stood before the king and nobles, honoured for purging the wraiths from the magical forest. The king granted Gellin dominion over his homeland's lands and some untamed territories nearby. Yet feeling this reward insufficient, the king asked Gellin what else she desired. Without hesitation, Gellin demanded authority to appoint successors to 12 vacant noble seats positions left empty after CT's massacre. The court's reaction was swift and harsh. Nobles cried foul, claiming Gellin overstepped by challenging the king's prerogative. Some even suggested scrapping her reward in favour of a mage of equal rank. Gellin tried to explain but was cut off by Amsor, who urged her to drop such demands and offered himself as ruler instead. The king promptly rejected Amsor's bid, needing him by his side. Then, meeting Gellin's gaze, the king bestowed the lordship upon Gauda and elevated him to count, granting him the power to appoint 2 key positions. Joy flooded Gellin's heart. With triumphant pride, Gellin drew his sword, pledging allegiance before the king. Applause erupted through the hall, not because they opposed Gellin, but because this was a grand performance. Even the king acknowledged the court's theatrics, labelling Amsor the worst actor of all. Back in his new domain, Gellin met his sister-in-law, promising that when CT's children matured, their rightful titles would be restored. If they desired it, no pressure. Touched, she watched Gellin's retreating figure and whispered her thanks. In the following days, Gauda's life as a count began reclaiming wilderness, expanding farmland, a scene echoing the series' opening. Gellin realised everyone from nobles to comrades hoped he would succeed as lord. A warm, hopeful atmosphere blossomed. Gellin's journey to lordship was only just beginning. The road ahead stretched long and uncertain. What trials await our steadfast hero? Stay tuned for the next chapter of this epic tale. The future is unwritten, but one thing is clear.